since I've been writing all these books, it took me to other jobs as well. And back in 2005, the Danish national television called me and asked if I would like to have a part or have the part in a series called You Are What You Eat, which I believe have been in many countries all over the world. And I was being the Danish rep for the Danish hostess for these programs, where we turned families, unhealthy families, into healthy families by changing, of course, their way to eat, even their way to think, the whole family structure, their daily life. And I did that for 2.5 years. And then after that, I did other TV series as well. And I was, for long periods of long time, I was a hostess in the Good Morning Denmark show we have on one of our big channels, where I was cooking food for people who had different illnesses. So I was really, really busy because I was also, and I am still, writing in a Danish magazine. This is a very popular magazine we have in Denmark called BT, and it has a lot of readers. And you see, some people ask me, do you never sleep? When do you sleep? And I guess I was really, maybe I was stressed, but I didn't notice because I was workaholic. I loved my job so much because somehow I thought my job and my doings was me. Maybe I didn't know who I was. I was a person who did a lot of things and who had a lot of proof of being really clever or doing things really well. I had a lot of proof with the books, the TV series, and somehow in my soul I believed that this is who I was, and I was only good enough if I did all these things. So obviously, if this is something you are convinced about, one day it's bound to go all wrong. So I was in a marriage that was not very good, neither for me or for him. So back in 2008, I decided that I want to move out of the marriage. I want to be divorced. So I told my husband, and we start to argue a lot. Not strange, but after a couple of months, I found myself a new apartment in a completely different area from where I used to live. And just before I told my husband that I wanted to divorce and to move, one of my best friends died from cancer. And I was at her funeral, sitting in the church. And so many thoughts goes into your mind when you're sitting in this environment, because this girl was only 46, and she had her children there, and my son grew up with her son. They were exactly the same age. So I was thinking maybe I should have a test with a private hospital, a test that could test all sorts of things for cancer and for anything. So a couple of days later, I booked a test like that, and I went through everything, to check the skin cancer, to check cancer in the bowels, but there was nothing. Everything was well. And by the end of the day, I went to have a bicycle test to check the heart, the lungs, and it all went fine. And then the doctor, he was looking at all the papers, and he said, yes, it's looking good, and da-da-da, and you have no risk for this and that. And I said to him, you know what, I would like to have my heart scanned. And he said, no, it's nothing we normally do. And I said, well, I think I'm paying for it myself, so I would like to have it done, as the end of the day. And, you can put everything together and tell me, how does it look? He said to me, there's nothing wrong with your heart because you have just done a bicycle test and you would never been able to do that. I can see it if there's something wrong. But anyway, he scanned my heart and he said, whoops, I can see that you are born with different valves than other people. And I will illustrate it to you, because normally, let's see if you can see this.
Yeah.
Normally, this is the aorta valve, and it consists of 3 little doors, you can say 3 little doors that opens up every time the heart forces the blood to come out in your blood vessels and in your veins. Now, my valves was constructed differently. They were constructed like this. So it obviously looks the same, but it opened up only, as you see, on the little tiny hole there in this on the side. So
Right.
instead of opening up fully, it just opened up this little gap because two of the valves were glued together. They said they were never opened by birth. So normally when you have an aorta valve, all three doors open, but not in my case. There was basically just one door open, and it just opened up this little tiny bit. Now, and an aorta opens up like this. It's like a hole of a hose, a garden hose. But mine was a little as a pencil, the end of a pencil. So doctor said to me, I don't understand, why you don't feel anything, but at the moment it looks okay. So I went home. I seriously thought about my life, and this is why I decided to get divorced, because I thought, okay, if this is gonna turn out really bad, I want to be able to be in a position where I can nurse myself. And now I'm in a marriage where it's so stressful. I have a job that is stressful, and I'm doing too many things. So I will just, you know, pull the, what you say,
Pull the
the
plug.
electricity cord, the plug, and get out. And so this is what I did. For 10 months, I just lived in a completely strange place. It was a nice place. My son moved with me because at that time he was only 16. Um, and I start to get over the divorce. It took a long time before my husband wanted to sign the papers. It took also a long time for me to get structure in my working life. Since I was so busy, there was a lot of things that had to be done before it was kind of quiet. After 10 months, I went back to the doctor and I said to him, I've changed a lot of things in my life. I would like you to scan my heart again to see if it is better now. And so he did, but he said, no, it's not better. It's even worse. I would ask you to go to the hospital immediately to have surgery and to get a new scan. And so I did. For the next 3 months, it just became worse and worse and worse. There were not much blood coming out of the heart. The heart was thickening, and so was the valves. The blood pressure inside the heart, the chambers of the heart, was 10 times as much as it's supposed to be. The funny thing was that I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel I was ill. So I'm thinking, I'm living very healthy. And I've done for many years, because obviously, if I go back to an unhealthy lifestyle, I would get my asthma back, I would get my allergy hay fever back, and I would get all the kilos back. And I don't want that. So I live very, very healthy. Um, the test showed that besides my heart that was not working and needs surgery immediately, my cholesterol level was gone up. It was sky high, which is very funny because this is something I really work with clients about, the high cholesterol. And since I don't eat meat, and I have not done for 20 years, and I don't drink any milk products or eat cheese, then how could that happen? So I start to think I need to work this out for myself. I don't want surgery, because the thing is, you are dependent on medicine the rest of your life. If you get new valves, in my age, you have to get mechanical valves, and therefore you have to get medicine that thins your blood. And I'm not going to be in the hands of the medicine mafia. So I would give myself some time to work out what really happened to me. And I knew that I had a story that I never had worked with. It was from when I was born. I was in an orphanage, children's home, for the first year of my life, because my mother was very young when she gave birth to me. She was only 19. And the thing is that at that time, she already had a son of 3. So you can imagine that she was very young when she had her first baby. And then the second baby, me, she just couldn't handle. She had no education. So I was sent to an orphanage. But before I came to the orphanage, I was in a hospital because my body just didn't work. So my start of my life was quite poor.
Mhm.
and it is something I was never able to talk about because, of course, as a baby, I had I had my thoughts, I had my feelings. I was worried, I'm sure I was scared like hell. And of course, it went into my heart and stayed there. Then, through my grown up life, I had a lot of therapy because of the orphanage, because of my story. But there was a part of that story I never, never, never was able to get into. And that was those 10 months in the orphanage. And you see, now it starts to make sense to me because here I was, 46 years old, getting divorced or already divorced, moved, and it took 10 months. And when I went to the doctors to get scanned in the hospital, and they said it's even worse now, it became worse in 10 months. It was a true copy of what I was living through when I was newborn. So I thought I have to work with my mind. And I found a very good meta health practitioner, Lars Myggen in Denmark, that I contacted, and he helped me understand the meta health system. And I took his education during 2 years and tried to work with myself only on a mental, psychological level. Because you see, the food, I couldn't do more with the food. I already done everything you can. So I went back to the hospital and said to them, I'm not going to have an operation. I'm not going to have medicine. I will do this on my own. And I will do some checkups with you, like every month or every second month. And they were doing like this. You are crazy because nobody will be healed from this. So Lars Myggen, he helped me. We did a lot of tapping as well. Uh, and I tried to, I understood about the heart. And you see, the heart, when you have some a history like mine, the heart, and I put it here on a piece of paper because, I look at it often. When you have some problems with the aorta valves and they get more thick, and the heart is thickening too, it means you have loss of territory. And in the marriage it was a loss of territory because I didn't feel home there. It was not good for me. I had a sexual conflict that's also belonging to problems with the heart. I think every person in a divorce will probably have a sexual conflict. Maybe that's why they're getting the divorce. And also, I was overwhelmed with a lot of worries, with a lot of jobs, and my head was never at ease. It was working nonstop. When I was sleeping at night, I had nightmares, like 3, 4 nightmares every night. When I woke up in the morning, I was always writing down my nightmares in order to understand what they meant. Because Lars told me that nightmares, you should say thank you. It's like night school. And who won't be happy to have a free lesson in night school? So, and the last thing is that the heart is also you can say it stands for kind of self-devaluation. So, the feeling of not being good enough. And I think I always had that feeling in me, even that, when I think today, of course I'm good enough. But it took, these 27 books and all these television programs to show me that I was good enough. And so, well, with the divorce on top of everything, this was when I was, I just couldn't take anymore. So I did the Meta Health education and I did my checkups with the hospital. But at the site, I did some secret checkups because I was still with my married name that nobody knew I had because everyone in Denmark know me as Lene Hansson, but the marriage name was different one. So I checked in to private hospitals and have the heart scan along the way. And the funny thing was that every time I went to a private hospital and I paid myself, the doctors would say, oh, yes, well, the opening is not that bad. It's not good, but it's not that bad. The size of the aorta was opening up month by month. One day, a doctor said to me, because I asked him, is my heart still too thick in the walls? He said, no, not at all. Why are you asking? But every time I went to the hospital, the normal hospital where they could operate me, they said it was all the same. at constantly was the same. Only the places where they didn't have operations and surgery said it was getting better and better and better. After 10 months doing this Meta Health and the tapping with Lars Myggen, I went to my fourth doctor, private, with a private practice. The good thing about this man was that he was doctor in the same hospital where I went for the normal test, but he had his own practice on the side. And he was the heart surgeon that took heart transplantations to Denmark. He was the first man in Denmark who did this. And he was operating in our biggest hospital in Denmark. And he's still there. And he examined me and he said, well, frankly, I don't understand why you're coming here. And I was like, but I have this diagnosis and my heart is thickening and the valves are not working and the pressure inside the heart is too high. He said, no, not really. Your heart valve is nearly normal. I see a little bit thickening, could be some calcium. I'm not sure because actually we can't see the difference. The inside the heart, yes, there's a little too much pressure, but not too much. I said, well, it's not what the doctors, your colleague says. He said, I will find out because I'm going to the hospital tomorrow. I will check out your report and I will call you. And so he did. And this was the 22nd of June a couple of years ago. And it was a hot summer day. I was here in this house. This is my wooden summer house. And I was doing the garden and suddenly my phone rang and it was Dr. Mortensen. And he said, Lene, I checked on your reports in the hospital, your journal, and I can see that they have a much different answer to these things than I have. But I stand for these results that I have done with you. So you see, it was fantastic. Since then,
Well, I think one of the problems, Lene, is that most of us don't have that opportunity to go to 4 or 5 different doctors and compare, which is something I think everybody should do, to have a second opinion or a third opinion. So it's a great story to see how, it's not always an alignment, a complete alignment between the different diagnoses.
no, it's true. It's true. But yes, I know a lot of people don't, most people don't have these opportunities. Maybe they don't have the money to do it. But it costs maybe 150 euros or dollars to have this. So maybe you can loan these money. You have to do it because the system is so awkward. Every time I ask the doctors, could this be connected with stress? They said, stress? No way. That is not proven. That's not scientifically proven. But the funny thing was, every time I had a break, because sometimes I was in there for a whole day doing the CT scan, the normal scan, and the nurses would come running to me and say, oh, are you not Lene Hansson? Oh, I'd like to ask you something because my daughter, she has some problem with her thyroid gland, and can you tell me what about the diet? And it's of course they do a great, fantastic job, and they're fantastic people, but they are missing the psychological matters of all illnesses. You see, when you come to a hospital, in this case, our hospital called Rigshospitalet, it has I think it has 16 stories, and each floor has a different illness. So you are in the floor of the heart or the floor of the lungs, and it's like they divide the whole body into floors, so they never see the whole person. This is the big difference. So to end this story, and the reason that I want to tell this story is that this was serious with my heart. And you don't have many tries. It's not like you had something with one kidney, and at worst you could get the kidney out. This is a really difficult thing to replace. So I just knew this was the right thing for me to do. And since then, I have gone twice to have my heart examined. And only a week ago, I was there the last time. And the doctor said to me, yes, I can see that you have these funny constructions of your valve. Actually, it doesn't matter if you have one valve, two, or 10. The most important thing is that your heart don't suffer from what it's doing. And your heart shows no signs of suffering. It's not thickened. The pressure inside the heart is normal now. So, you can come once a year if you feel like it. because now it looks really, really good. But the really difficult thing here is you have to be firm in your decisions and believe in yourself. And that's difficult.